Our next presenter is Mr. Fazeel S. He is an attorney practicing in the area of civil rights law and consumer protection law. He's also the secretary of the US-based Lahore Ahmadiyya Islamic Society. If you know anything about the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, then you know that they have been working for interfaith, interreligious peace and harmony for well over a century. And what they have harvested is a tremendous amount of persecution and suffering. But to their credit, they have never given up. And I'm very grateful to have representatives from that community here today. He's also the editor of the periodical The Light and Islamic Review. He's an active participant in various Islamic and interfaith programs throughout the country. He's a past board member for the Interfaith Center for Peace and currently a board member for the Horizon Prison Initiative. Let's welcome Mr. Khan.
Yes, I'm an attorney. Please don't hold it against me. Actually, a very nice guy. Thank you so much for the invitation to speak and just for this gracious opportunity to be here with you all today. I'd like to start by greeting you all with the Islamic salutation, Assalamu alaikum, which means may peace be upon you. Just before I begin, I'll let you know a little bit about myself. I was born in the Fiji Islands, but grew up in Vancouver, Canada. Everyone says, you know, why would you leave Fiji, this tropical paradise? Well, I was one, I didn't have much of a choice. But I was, I think, very blessed to be brought up in an interfaith environment. My mom's side of the family is Christian. She's a convert to Islam. My dad's side of the family is all Muslim. So I grew up in Vancouver, where mostly my mother's side of the family resides, primarily with my grandmother, who was this devout Christian and the most caring, loving, generous person I've ever known. And it's how she lived her life as a Christian that taught me so much about how I should live my life as a Muslim. So I've been asked to speak today about this topic of respect and its significance to the goal of peace from my faith tradition, Islam. So to start, what is respect? Respect is the recognition of value in something. You know, when you respect someone, you believe that that person possesses something of value. So showing respect to others can be an extremely effective medium by which peaceful connections may be created and a foundation from which amicable resolutions may be achieved. Showing respect to others builds bridges of understanding, and forms bonds of friendship. It is in fact an integral basis to any harmonious relationship, as was discussed by the previous speaker. You know, whether it is between individuals, communities, or even nations. Now, as children, we're taught to respect our elders. You know, we respect our parents, we respect our teachers, we respect people in positions of authority. As adults, though, when we become autonomous beings, people who are equal in terms of rights and responsibilities, it becomes a little bit more complicated. As adults, we tend to choose who we believe is worthy of respect. And oftentimes, it is society, popular culture, that dictates for us who is worthy of respect. Celebrities, the rich, the powerful, the famous, and even the infamous. Religion, however, teaches us something different. Religion teaches us that we are to see the value in everyone. Respecting others is considered a spiritual attribute, a high moral quality that should be incorporated in our daily lives. And this applies especially to those who are not famous or powerful the poor, the weak, the refugee, the underrepresented and marginalized members of society. Giving respect to such persons is in fact considered a sign of true character. Now, I would like to share with you 4 ways in which this concept of respect for others is presented from the Islamic tradition. The first is a general principle of respect for all people as though mankind is one family. The Quran, the religious scripture of Islam, states, it teaches that all humanity is one and therefore all people are equal and deserve equal respect. It states all mankind is a single nation. It also states that all people have been created from the same being, having descended from the same parents, and are like dwellers of one home, having the same earth as a resting place and the same sky as a roof. And this concept of mankind being like one family was beautifully explained by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, who was the founder of the Ahmadiyya movement in Islam. In his book titled Message of Peace, he addresses the issue of intolerance and disrespect often shown by people of different faiths towards one another. He wrote, "Friends, ponder for God's sake and say whether such beliefs are acceptable to reason, whether there is anything in human conscience which responds to them. I cannot see how a rational being can believe on the one hand that God is the Lord of the whole universe and yet say on the other hand that he has withdrawn his fostership and care from a greater part of the world, and that his love and mercy is confined to one people in one country. Our God has not withheld his bounty from any people. The powers and faculties which he bestowed on the ancient peoples of India have also been bestowed on the Arabs, the Persians, the Syrians, the Chinese, the Japanese, the Europeans, and the Americans. For all of them, the earth of God serves as a floor, and for all of them, his sun, moon, and stars give light. All of them derive benefit from the air, water, fire, earth, and other things created by God, and all of them use the produce of the earth. These liberal ways of God teach us that we too should do good to all mankind, and should not be narrow-minded, nor limit our respect for anyone." Now, correspondingly, diversity among people is understood in Islam as a means of betterment and progress for humanity, not a cause for prejudice and disunity. The Quran states, "O mankind, surely we have created you from a male and a female, and made you tribes and nations so that you may know each other." The Quranic lesson is that differences in race, in national origin, in culture aren't meant to divide, but rather facilitate growth in humanity by learning from one another. It acknowledges that different people have different experiences from which others may learn, and that in respecting these differences lies much value and worth in humanity as a whole. The second way in which Islam advances respect for others, and in particular respect for other religions, is by upholding the truthful origins of other faith traditions and the integrity of the holy founders of other religions. See, according to Islam, just as God provides for our material sustenance, so too does he provide for all mankind's spiritual development. And God does this throughout history by raising prophets and messengers among all people on earth, so that all people would be equally blessed with God's guidance. The Quran states for every nation there is a messenger. It also states there is not a people, but a warner has gone among them. In fact, Prophet Muhammad is recorded as stating that there were 124,000 prophets in all. So the founders and religious personalities of the great religions of the world are accepted in Islam as messengers of God. It is understood that they were sent to specific people under specific conditions for their guidance and spiritual revival. These holy personalities taught great truths and were role models of morals and virtues to their people. And when we see so much commonality between the different faith traditions, we know why. Because they originated from the same source. And the message was essentially the same. Believe in God and do good to others. So respect for other religions and the great religious personalities of the world is really an expression of appreciation that is very much needed in the world today. In truth, if such a worldview were to become common among people of all faiths, it would be an extremely effective measure against the spread of radical ideologies and the commission of acts of violent extremism that we see so rampant. For it is when one believes that the group that they belong to is maligned by others, that is what motivates their animosity and hostility. Respecting what is sacred to others is a practical means of stripping extremists of the religious garb which they often clothe themselves in for their self-interested political ambitions. The third way in which Islam furthers the concept of respect for others is by teaching that every single individual has the Spirit of God within them and is therefore inherently holy. See, according to Islam, like in other religions, we're not simply physical beings, but also spiritual ones too. And it is because each one of us has a soul. And we're told that in the Quran that our soul is in fact the Spirit of God that's breathed into us. Now, the Spirit of God within us means that each one of us possesses the divine attributes. Just as God is loving, compassionate, merciful, forgiving, so too does every human possess these attributes within them. As an analogy, the Quran likens the soul to a seed. Just as the seed has certain inherent qualities that, if cultivated properly, can grow into a garden, so too does the soul possess divine attributes that, if developed properly, can lead to the spiritual garden of heaven. And appreciating the divine existence within others is a natural antidote to bigotry and intolerance. It is very difficult to hate another or cause harm to another when you understand that every person has the divine within them. Differences, whether religious or political or even social or cultural, do not rise to the level of considering others to be of no value or worth when you believe that they possess the same fundamental spiritual essence as you do. History bears witness to the fact that it is the belief in some inherent superiority of one group over another, whether it's a belief in a chosen people, or racial supremacy, or in national exceptionalism, that has been the root cause of wars, genocides, and bloodshed from the beginning of time. The Quran teaches that the only basis for superiority in the eyes of God lies in piety and righteousness. It is only those who are God-like in their actions with others that are considered successful, and that such a determination is only made by God. As Prophet Muhammad explained in his final sermon, all mankind is from Adam and Eve, and an Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab, nor does a non-Arab have any superiority over an Arab. A white has no superiority over a black, nor does a black have any superiority over a white, except by piety and good works. Now, the last way in which I'll discuss that Islam furthers the concept of respect for others is through the practical example of how Prophet Muhammad lived his life, a model that Muslims try to emulate. Prophet Muhammad's life is replete with illustrations of his respect and care for all people, in particular the less fortunate and vulnerable members of society. He laid particular stress on protecting orphans and widows, as they were the most helpless members of society at the time. In the 7th century, when women were treated like chattel, in essence the property of their male relations, with no independence or autonomy of their own, Prophet Muhammad advanced a rather revolutionary understanding of respect for gender equality. He institutionalized the lessons of the Quran that guaranteed women the right to own and inherit property, the right to engage in financial and business transactions, the right to choose one's spouse, the right to work and receive equal pay for equal work, and even the right to be a community leader and a political representative. Famous examples of Prophet Muhammad appointing a woman to the position of superintendent of the market, what is equivalent to Secretary of Commerce today. His renowned sayings often focused on respect for the importance of women to the family unit. He's reported as saying, "Heaven lies at the feet of your mother." He has also said to the men in his company, "The best of you is he who is best to his wife." And he also said, "Whoever has a daughter and provides for her education, I will intercede on your behalf on the day of judgment." There's also a noble lesson on respect from the incident referenced in the Quran about Prophet Muhammad's interaction with a blind man. During Prophet Muhammad's mission, he was one day busy explaining the doctrines of Islam to the noble Quraysh tribe. Along came a blind man who interrupted the Prophet and asked a question. So the Prophet was somewhat displeased by this interruption, this intrusion, and he showed his displeasure by frowning and turning away. The Quran records that it was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad that he should not neglect the blind man over the powerful community leaders, for only God knows who is sincere in seeking the truth. Prophet Muhammad then sent for the blind man, spread his own cloth for him to sit on, and gave him personal time to discuss whatever questions he had. Another incident concerns a lady who used to throw garbage on Prophet Muhammad from the balcony of her apartment every day when the Prophet used to walk on that particular street. This was during the early years of the Prophet's mission in Mecca, when the small Muslim community was extremely reviled and very persecuted. One day, Prophet Muhammad was walking down the street and he noticed that no one was throwing garbage at him. So he inquired as to where this lady was. He found out that she was very ill. So he visited her and inquired from her if there was anything he could do to help. This made a tremendous impact on this lady and also others who knew her. Similarly, there was an incident of a poor lady who used to sweep the mosque in Medina that the Prophet used to pray in. One day the Prophet noticed she wasn't there, so he inquired about her. And the people told him that she had passed away the night before, but they didn't think it was important to tell him because she was just a sweeper. He immediately gathered all the people and personally led the funeral prayers for this lady, showing that respect is given to everybody, not anyone of a particular class or status in society. These are just a few incidents of Prophet Muhammad's life that provide some practical lessons on how this concept of respect for others can be demonstrated in one's life. Now, what I have presented in this short talk, I'm sure is relatable to lessons on respect and other faith traditions. And the points I raised are also very consistent with the core principles of UPF. As an honored ambassador of peace, I take pride in seeing this congruency. As it is the work of organizations like the Universal Peace Federation and the Women's Federation for World Peace, and gatherings like this that we have today, that provide these opportunities to practically implement these notions and lessons on peace. So I'd like to thank UPF and WFWP for their good works, and to all of you for listening to me today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for this excellent presentation.